And is that Congressman Ney on line 11 there that I'm looking at? Yes, indeed. Former Congressman Bob Ney, author of the brilliant book Sideswiped about how this town works and his experiences in it, and currently a reporter with the Talk Radio News Service. Bob, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. I'm in an airport, so I apologize for any background noise.
That's quite all right. I appreciate your taking a few minutes from your travel schedule to be with us. I really wanted your input and insights into this. Kevin McCarthy has pulled out of the speaker race. Is he basically facing the same problem John Boehner did, which is a revolt from the roughly 40 Tea Party crazies in the Republican caucus?
Oh, he got it. I mean, I'm putting this blame on Boehner because I went back to that on Facebook today. I mean, if you go back to, what I knew and what others knew, I mean, it wasn't rocket scientist in my book. It was all the style of Boehner. So as Boehner went out, let's look at what he did first of all, Tom. He then turned around and said, well, I want McCarthy. That's a mistake number one, just, let the system go. He then turned around, Boehner did, and said, we're not going to have elections for the other two positions of majority whip or majority leader and whip until next month. That was a manipulation to get McCarthy in the speaker's seat. Then McCarthy would have a lot of power and would kind of handpick who he wanted below him, you see.
Right, which upset the Tea Party caucus.
Oh,
the so-called Freedom Caucus.
But, Boehner is just not bright enough to leave things alone, so he had to try to. Then he went privately and met with Trey Gowdy, of all people, whom we now know officially chairs a committee that used taxpayers' money to drive Hillary's numbers down. We now know that due to McCarthy. So Boehner met privately with Trey Gowdy and tried to do this revolution. So finally, the Tea Party people said, okay, we're done. You lose 29 votes. You guys are done. And McCarthy all of a sudden became completely irrelevant. But I've got to tell you, Tom, they are trying to underplay, because for obvious reasons, of the McCarthy statement on Hillary Clinton. They're trying to downplay that and say, well, it's all about him not being conservative enough, et cetera. But that statement, too, that hurt him in a huge way.
Oh, yeah. And yesterday, Congressman Alan Grayson dropped an ethics complaint on him and Trey Gowdy, and that's got to be a big deal.
I didn't know that happened, and I was asking some friends of mine in the progressive movement. I'm like, why are people afraid? Somebody needs to drop an ethics charge on that one. I mean, that's huge, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was on our TV show last night. In fact, he was on the radio show yesterday afternoon talking about it.
Well, that's going to have some play. So the Tea Party said, well, we don't want you. Now, what's really interesting, they say, well, okay, we want Webster. Well, the problem is the Tea Party, they don't have enough votes to elect Webster. So therefore, you have, the other side, some moderate Republicans maybe will say, we don't want Webster. I would find it absolutely amazing if anybody started talking to the Democratic side. Anybody can vote for Speaker,
Right.
Now, that would be an amazing piece of history. I doubt that happens, but...
So is it even remotely conceivably possible that the Republican caucus can't get it together to have a nominee, and Nancy Pelosi steps forward and says, hey, I'm here. I was a speaker before. I can be a speaker again. And all the Democrats would vote for her. And so all it would take is about 30 Republicans, roughly?
30 Republicans. Or they pick a compromise candidate. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but look, if the 45 keep rejecting who, the majority of them want, and then the majority of them will not, in fact, support, who the 45 want, eventually they have to come to some type of deal. But I mean, I doubt they would go to the Democratic side. But this is total chaos. That debt ceiling is coming up, Tom, and this is chaos beyond anyone's comprehension. This is probably almost a politically fatal mistake for the 45 to have not went along with McCarthy.
You think the Tea Party caucus or the so-called Freedom Caucus have shot themselves in the foot? They're really damaging Congress?
They are. If they can't come up with a candidate and put aside all the bitter feelings, I mean, I'm talking within hours, Tom, hours, not days, within hours.
Wow. They
are going to do a lot of damage. And then if chaos ensues and they have two more positions to fill, remember that. Right. If they're not together, it hands, in my opinion, the 2016 Democratic candidate a lot of fuel to say to the average independent and some Republicans, there's chaos over there. Let's balance this system out. I mean, it's an edge.
Right. This is absolutely remarkable.
Amazing.
Is there any possibility that the Whig Party disintegrated in the late 1820s, early 1830s, in no small part over arguments about slavery and things. But it basically bifurcated, just like the Republicans are right now, into an extreme wing and a moderate wing, and then it just fell apart and got replaced in 1856 by the Republican Party. Do you think that the Republican Party is disintegrating, or is this will pass, this storm will pass?
Well, I don't think it's going to be. They're not in disintegration mode, but I've got to tell you, they are in a dangerous mode. Dangerous. And if they don't do something for some continuity and stop, some of this, that you've got to be all one ilk,
right.
I think then they are in a disintegration mode. I think this is one of the most critical times probably since Gingrich.
Yeah.
Of them to decide where they want to be. Then they may self-destruct if they don't stop this.
Yeah, that's amazing. By the way, I should correct my own history. It was the Federalists who were disintegrating in the 20s, which led to the rise of the Whigs. The Whigs disintegrated in the 1850s. Thank you very much, Bob Nate. Bob, it's great having you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
And be sure to check out Bob's book, Sideswiped, if you want to know the real story of John Boehner. There's like a couple of chapters devoted to that. It's breathtaking.